Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning and welcome to our Political Pirate Podcast featuring yours truly, the old salty dog. My co-host, the captain of our ship, is traveling at the moment, maybe joining us later. He's actually in D.C. or traveling to D.C. and he may be able to join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll see how that goes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. I can tell you it's been a little bit bumpy in the MAGA world right now, and this comes to your article we're going to talk about from the Daily Mail. Trump faces MAGA revolt on his own social media platform after defending Pam Bondi amid Epstein files debacle. Now, Ted and I talked a little bit about this on the show ending Friday. Hope you had a blessed weekend. I know I did. But this Epstein files, or lack thereof, or lack of the list, is taking on somewhat of a life of its own. The controversy is real, ladies and gentlemen. It's real. Now, there's a lot of things that pop up online on the internet and everything else. You know, that thing with the knobs and the tubes, as the one old senator once said, that I dismiss as basically just chatter. But this thing with the Epstein files is definitely hitting a note. I am hearing it in the general public. You know, I hear people when I go on these fishing trips, which I did not go this weekend, but I've been going pretty regular. I hear people talking about it on the boat. And that is a very defining thing when I hear people talking about it between stops on the boat, because that means it's cracking through to the general public. But Donald Trump, and you know I'm about as pro-Trump as you could be. If you've ever watched our show, you'll see when I broadcast from my hidden studio at Fort Hawthorne, I have a Trump face right behind me, kind of a comical one, but a Trump one nonetheless. And I've been for Donald Trump since the day he walked down the escalator. I've been a Trump fan going back all the way into the 70s and 80s and all, when he was first coming into the public realm. I've always liked Donald Trump, and I still do. But I'm willing to call balls and strikes, as they say, and the president has no one to blame for this controversy, or he does have someone to blame, starting with himself. Now, there are others that play a little bit of role in this, but Donald Trump has himself to blame. And when I say this, because I'm going to get into this fairly deep in a moment, I'm not saying that President Trump was on any list. Certainly I could understand the speculation. I'm not saying that President Trump, Donald Trump, the man, has done anything wrong or immoral or any of that stuff. I simply don't know. But I do know that there's a lot of smoke coming up, and where there's smoke, there is quite often fire. And Donald Trump, when I say he's to blame for this, he and his administration and his campaigns, both in the first administration, the failed campaign in the middle there, and now the successful one for 47, this Epstein thing, they have used it, they being the Trump team, have used it to their advantage. So they have kept this flame going as much as anyone. I want to play you a very recent example of this. This is a video of Donald Trump's lawyer. I want to say it was back in February of this year, talking about the Epstein file. And, well, let's just hear it in our own words. I say this is President Trump's own lawyer back in February of this year. Check it out.
This case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability. But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is.
And there you have
disturbing.
Alina Halba, that's Donald Trump's lawyer, back in like February of this year, essentially saying that they have the file and that it has got some damaging stuff in it and they're going to release it. She said, her own words, incredibly disturbing. And then Morgan is on there, the English guy. He's interviewing her, and she says there's so many individuals involved in this and that they need to be held accountability. And I agree with that. But let me tell you, so think about this. She's saying, I'm going to repeat it again, incredibly disturbing, the file. So you assume she's seen it. I'm assuming she's not lying. And she says there's so many individuals. If true, as the Democrats like to say, then what happened to it? How could there be like no list now? Now, I'm not even getting into the whole Epstein suicide thing or anything like that. I take it at face value on that. Is it peculiar? Yes, it is. Certainly a pretty peculiar set of circumstances there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he committed suicide. He clearly was troubled. And he clearly probably had something on the Clintons, and everybody seems to be suicidal if they have something on the Clintons. But if this is true, if what Trump's lawyer is saying is true, then what happened to it? Why haven't they released it? You know, Elon Musk said that back when he was having his spat, and they've renewed their spat again with Donald Trump, essentially said that Donald Trump was on the list. And that is why it hadn't been released yet and everything else. And then he kind of walked that back, took it back. So you don't really know exactly who to believe. But Donald Trump wrote on his Truth Social page this weekend, this is what he said about this Epstein thing. He said, we're on one team, because he's being criticized, his team of Cash and Patel, Cash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi is getting a lot of heat. So he's kind of defending them on Truth Social. He says, this is the president himself, says, we're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people who are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. So I guess you could put me in that category of selfish people. I don't really think of myself that way, but, you know, you have a right to ask questions. One of the things that troubled me the most about the whole COVID situation, going back to that, and one of the reasons I got banned on YouTube back when I had my own show, John Martin Talks, was that I questioned the fact that you couldn't ask questions. You couldn't ask questions about the virus, about the vaccine, about the election. You couldn't ask questions. We should be able to ask questions, right? And so that's all. Now, there are people that are trying to hurt Donald Trump. I am not one of them. No doubt about that. I'm not one of them. But think about this. I'm going to read this again. Donald Trump said that on his Truth Social, defending his administration and not releasing or saying they've already done all they can do with Epstein. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. Well, the way I look at that, you, sir, Donald Trump, President Trump, you and your team created the expectation. You guys created the expectation that there was something to it, that there was a lot of fire in this, and that information was being withheld from the United States public, the citizens of the United States, because of the Epstein files. It looks like our the pirate of our captain ship, or the captain of our pirate ship, our political pirate ship, none other than the great Ted Yoho is going to join us from Washington, D.C. Can you hear me, Ted?
Hear you loud and clear, John. Looking good, man. Can you hear me?
Okay. We're still working out the details. Hang in there, Ted. If you can hear me, what we're talking about is the Jeffrey Epstein case. You know, we ended the show on Friday. Trying to make sure we got. Yeah, I hear you now. You can hear me, Ted?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, yeah, I know you got some notes that we put together for the show. And we ended the show on Friday talking a little bit about Jeffrey Epstein case. But this case is really blowing up in the public opinion. And the Trump administration, and I said earlier, nobody's more Trump than me, but they seem to be trying to gloss it over. And, you know, I played a video from the president's own attorney back in February where she said, and I'm going to give it, she said that she'd seen the file basically and that it was incredibly disturbing. It had so many individuals and that people need to be held accountable. But President Trump wrote on Truth Social, he said, "We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people who are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies." And right before you came on, I literally said, but the problem is that Team Trump created the expectation of these Epstein files. So I've been yakking for a while now. Ted, what are your thoughts about where we are with the Epstein files and whether we should just say is nothing to this, nothing to see here, move along like the president wants to do, because it seems to be gaining traction within the MAGA world. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it does, and there's a lot of people that wanted accountability with Epstein, and anybody that was on that list to, be held accountable, go to prison or whatever, exposed. I think it's a big thing. And, they said they were going to get at the bottom of this in the beginning, and, Pam Bondi says, "I've got it all on my desk. It's there for review." And I know you got a clip that's going to talk about this later on. And the attorney said the same thing, his attorney. Here we are. That was back in February when his attorney said that. Here we are in mid-July. They've had a chance to go through that. It's going to be interesting how this plays out. I don't know if there's anything that is really there. It sure has let the movement that wanted to expose this, that let them down several notches because they want this salacious stuff out there. They want to have all these bad people arrested. And I think time will tell. I wouldn't get hung up in it. Let's let it go through the process. And, if you see Dan Bongino and Kash Patel resign because of this, that's going to lead more credence that there is something there that's not being exposed. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out.
Well, you mentioned Kash Patel and Mr. Bongino, and I've actually met Dan a couple times. And, I got a lot of respect for both of those guys. But to a certain extent, they added to their careers talking about the Epstein files, especially Dan Bongino. And I'm not saying he was being disingenuous or not, but you can understand why people are saying, you kind of made hay with this, but now you're in there and you're telling us there's nothing to see here, move along. So I get why people, they got detractors and enemies. I'm not even talking about that. But I get why people in the MAGA movement are a bit perplexed by this, because some of our heroes, if you want to call them that, led us to believe that there was a lot of there. And now they're basically saying there's not. And you mentioned Pam Bondi. I want to play a clip from her.
They sure did.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Did we lose him? I think we might have lost our friend Ted. But we're going to play this clip from Pam Bondi. And this was her talking about the Epstein files being on her desk, and Ted referred to that. So let's check this out, and maybe we can get Ted back on in a moment. Go ahead.
Releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen? It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients.
Well, there you have it.
Will that
they
really
made
happen?
a big deal.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
But you had Pam Bondi in her own words talking about
check back with
Epstein files being on her desk. And remember that the Trump
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients.
Will
that really happen?
Epstein files.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
They've made the expectation so big.
Well, we'll check back with you.
Just the other day, just this past week, there was a press conference, and some of the press asked questions about the Epstein file, and I want to play the president's response to this. Check this out. This is President Trump. Okay, let me set this up while my producer gets the video set up. So this was a press conference that happened this week in the White House, and it had Pam Bondi there and the president. I think Mr. Rubio was there, and they were there to talk about something totally different, but the press asked them about the Epstein file, and this is the president's response if we're ready. Have we got that up yet?
Still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that opens up a world of possibilities with Venture X.
And there you had the president saying, you guys are still talking about Epstein, the Epstein files? I mean, of course we are. You've been talking about them too until right up to this last second here. But I don't know if we still probably don't have Ted back. If you've been tuning into us, we're talking about the Epstein files and the lack of release of them and the problem it's causing within the MAGA movement. And we had our captain of our pirate ship, Ted Yoho. He's at an airport in D.C., so he's remote. I don't know. I see him. Are you back, Ted?
I'm back for the time being. It's a shame that our cellular network can't work better here.
Yeah, maybe we need to get that in the file. But when you faded off there a minute, we just played the clip from the president at his press conference talking about you guys are still talking about Epstein and all that. But here's the problem I have, Ted. And you know, I'm here in the studio today at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And this is the heart of Gator country now, right? Football and all that, the legends here. So I want to give you a sports analogy on this. So, Ted, I know you've been a long-time Gator fan, a UF grad like me. Did more with your career than mine, but anyway, well, that's another story. But remember back in the day, we had a solid football team, but never, you know, our favorite saying was "wait till next year," and we didn't really. Realistically, the Gator fans were loyal, but they didn't have this expectation that we were going to be national titles, hopefully one day SEC title, that kind of thing. But then all of a sudden, the university, led by Jeremy Foley, a friend of mine, great athletic director, they began to make some changes. And they came to the alumni, basically, the boosters, a lot bigger boosters than myself, and they said, look, if you put the money in, we're going to produce. And they revamped the stadium. They started doing all kind of things different. They built skybox. They did this. They created an expectation that we could win the SEC championship. that the University of Florida could compete for a national title. And guess what? It happened. They did.
Well, it sure did.
And it was glorious. But then, so they kept asking for money. People kept giving it to them. But then we went through, like a lot of programs, a downturn for a little while, and we're kind of in one now. We've been up and down. But I got a good friend of mine. I'll let him remain anonymous, but he was a sportscaster, and we used to debate literally live on the radio because I would defend people who were complaining about us not winning. And he said, what are your expectations? And you can't compete for a national title in the SEC every year. And I told him, I said, look, we didn't create those expectations. The administration created those expectations. And now they're telling us to be patient and just wait and that there's nothing to see here. But they created the expectation that we were going to be perennial winners. I think the same thing has happened with this Epstein. They've created an expectation that they were going to be different, that they were going to reveal all this stuff, that there was a lot of smoke there was fire. And now they seem to be complaining that people in the MAGA movement have an expectation that you're going to produce. That was a long-winded explanation, but I really believe that is what we're seeing here, the same type of thing.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, there was an expectation when the administration came in, but the difference, John, is one's a sports, it's a game. The other is our country. I didn't hire Trump and his administration strictly on the Epstein. It's our debt. It's China, it's our border, it's our energy, it's education, and we can add to that, the role of the government is national security. Saying that, they had created an expectation. The movement, Trump, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and yes, this is important, but it's not the important thing. If we were to triage a patient coming in, and they've just been hit by a car, bones are sticking out, and he's got a hangnail, I'm not going to get hung up on the hangnail. I want to get the patient stable. And the patient is this country. It's our form of government. It's the attitude of people that, this is a terrible country and overrun borders, and that's not true. And so this will play out, but I think we need to focus on those things. China, is just taking advantage, not taking advantage. They've got a very astute plan to take over the world, and you see what's going on with the rare earth minerals. You see what's going on with our pharmaceuticals, their encroachment in the South China Sea, the Philippines, South America. Those are really the important things. Epstein's not the important thing. I think there needs to be accountability, and I think there will be. Yeah. And again, if you see Bongino step down and Kash Patel, that's going to allow a lot more credence, and it just ruins the credibility of the administration. One last thing. This is what happens when you hang your movement or your money on the wrong horse, the wrong issue to run on. And, Trump, unfortunately, he made a big deal out of this at the beginning. And he also made, it's kind of like, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine in one day. And that credibility is coming back to bite you, because you've lost that credibility.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to dive back into this because, Ted, I 100% agree with everything you just said about what's really important. But when we get back, and I'll leave a little cliffhanger on there, I'm going to tell you why this Epstein thing, in my view, is a very big deal. And I think you'll enjoy it. We'll be right back.
I will.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All these poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back to the 3 Ps Political Pirate Podcast with yours truly, the old salty dog, and the captain of our ship live from Washington, D.C., Captain Ted Yoho. Well, when we went to break, we were talking about the Epstein files, or the lack thereof them, and the reaction primarily from the MAGA group, the MAGA agenda. And as I said, Ted, before we went to break, I'm not worried about the enemies of Donald Trump, the Democrats, all of that, the mainstream media, because they're going to throw stones at him no matter what he says or does. We've seen that. But I am worried about the turmoil, if there is some, within the MAGA movement. And the reason is because of exactly what you said when we were going to break, that this Epstein thing is, when in the scheme of things, is not important. What's important is all the things you listed, like the deficit, the debt, the economy, world affairs, peace, all these, taking our country back, cleaning it up, putting it back on the right track. All of that stuff is what's important. I agree 100%. But the reason it is a big deal to me is I'm worried that if we don't handle this correctly, that all of those things you just listed are going to take a back seat, and it may affect the midterms and everything that Donald Trump has worked so hard for and that we've been so excited about is going to be stopped in its tracks. That's what I'm worried about.
No, I agree with you, and I understand that, and I hope our listeners do also. But think of this, John. You're rebuilding your football team, say the Gators. You've got all this expectations. You recruit some good players, and maybe you don't get maybe you hit a 50-50 season, 5-0, or whatever, how many games they play, but you've got the talent that's growing. So here America is building a team to go back to some of these basics. Go back to the Tea Party in 2010-11. There was that sticker that says, "Take America Back." Here we are 15 years beyond that. Look at where we were with Biden and Harris, and think of where we would be if Harris had won. Think of where we are now, or look at the reality where we are. Look at him doing a reform of government and government programs, the Department of Education, the way he stood up to China, to these trade deficits around the world, the way he's got NATO to stand up, secured our border. China's paying attention to us. Now we have to really focus on these things. So we're in a recruiting and a building phase. Donald Trump has done a great job, but he may not be the one to carry us all through. It's the next one coming in, and this is why we've got to keep this movement going. And let's get away from making some of the same mistakes and making promises that we shouldn't have made. let's focus on the reality. And I think it's a great time in the country because you're seeing the sentiment change. You look at the big beautiful bill. It's based on the American Jobs Act and tax cuts that we passed in 2017. So these things are all moving in the right direction. Let's build from that. And if he's not the one to be the quarterback anymore, we'll replace him. And let's make sure that we get people that are going to adhere to the constitutional principles of this movement, and let's not go backwards. We're having a speed bump right here, and this will work out. And with the next administration that comes in, hopefully it's going to be a conservative one. We can go back in this if the American people want to do that. But I think we need to focus on the majors.
I agree with you 100%. What really got me to want to talk about this story was I was home over the weekend, and, we talked a little bit about it on Friday's show, just kind of casually about it, that it was something to look at. But over the weekend, they had the Turning Point USA convention, if you will, or group that Charlie Kirk does every year. And it was in Tampa. And I watched some of it this weekend, and there were these are mainly young people, but there were, and they're huge supporters of Donald Trump. There were many speakers that addressed this issue and were perplexed by it. And that really opened my eyes to just how potentially deep concern within the MAGA movement. And I'm worried about the distraction. Here's something that one person wrote on Truth Social. There was a debate on Truth Social after the president came out and made some remarks. And I want to read it because I really think it kind of encapsulates my concern. This is what this writer said. He said, talking about the president, "You aren't reading the room, Mr. President," one person wrote. "You can't call the Epstein files fake, say nobody cares, and warn MAGA to fall in line. You said Pam Bondi is doing a fantastic job. Your administration is perfect, and Epstein is just an Obama distraction. We don't just fall in line." And I think it's probably a bit overstatement, but at the same time, the types of people like you and I, Ted, I know we have similar opinions and some may be different, but we're not the type of people that just fall in line and follow orders automatically. But we're both very strong Donald Trump supporters. And I'm not saying I'm wavering on Donald Trump in any way, but I get what people are saying, that the types of people you need in your movement to turn this country around are not the type that are just going to lockstep and fall into line. And I think there is some damage control that needs to be done by the Trump administration.
No, I agree with you. I think that has to be done. And I read that article too, and I have to agree with the guy. But again, I'm not going to focus my attention strictly on that. And I think we all feel the same. If the president's culpable or he's on that list, he needs to be held accountable. I don't have a problem with that. And I think that's where people, they just want to know. I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. I mean, are UFOs real, or, what happened to RFK and John F. Kennedy? I don't know. But we can't just come to a standstill on it. And I know you realize that. And so let's let this play out. Let's stay focused on where we're going, build for the next election. Let's recruit different players. And then this will, the truth will set you free, and it will eventually come out, I'm sure, on this. You get another administration that says, we're going to turn all this garbage over, the UFO stuff. I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday. Why is that a secret to anybody? I mean, if the government's complicit in some of this stuff, or some of the leaders today, not just in our country, but around the world, or in the Epstein file, who cares? Expose them, get rid of them, and move on. And I don't think the government should withhold information, because then you get into conspiracies and all that. And so let's stay focused on what we're trying to do with the country, get our debt under control, energy security, secure the border, counter China, pharmaceuticals here, and let's grow an economy in America so the American dream's for everybody.
Yeah, well, you said something that made me think about something I've talked
about. That's my job.
It is. You trigger me. You're trigger Ted. Triggers my thoughts here. And people need maybe hear me out on this. I never had, I guess because I grew up, came of age in the 60s and early 70s, and we had Nixon.
That was a great time, wasn't it?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And I've been a political junkie based on my family at a very early age. But I never really looked at political leaders as my moral guidance. Don't get me wrong. I would like to have a moral person in the White House, and I'm not saying we don't have one now, but I don't look to the President of the United States as my moral compass personally. They're not my mentors. They're not that. My father was. The people that spent time with me that I grew up with, they were, pastors, those types of things, not sports figures, those kind of things. No. So I don't look at it the same as some people do, but I'm very worried that because I want Donald Trump to succeed in his mission to make America great again, America first, all that. So I'm very worried that this could derail the MAGA agenda to a certain extent. And I don't.
That's why our program is so important, John. God uses imperfect people to carry the message for the time. And so let's just, keep that in mind. They're not perfect. As you said, I never looked at politicians, very rarely, as somebody that really inspired me. It was the people, like you said, it's your football coach, it's your parents, it's your family members, it's your pastor or priest. These are the people and we want, as we move forward, hopefully we're going to get more grounded people in the basic philosophy of just being a moral citizen and an educated person, that doesn't fly off and tweet all the time and, say some crazy things, because that's sending a message to our children. We're on the right track. And, again, I think we're going to find people are going to emerge out of this as our next group of leaders. I truly believe that, if we keep the faith and keep marching the direction we're going.
Well, here's the way people, this may sound opposite of how people think we need to deal with, but let me tell you, in my opinion.
I must have stimulated another thought.
Yeah. How do we deal with this? Here's how we deal with this. We get more involved, not less.
Right.
More involved, not less, because the reason why we are where we are as a nation is because we have not been involved as a nation. We have let the politics, the big business, the big players, all of that take our country from us. De Tocqueville said back in the 1830s, a French philosopher, that this country would be okay until we realized that we could vote money from the Treasury to us. It is up to us, the American people, to take this country back. It is not up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is symbolic of us rising up and saying, yeah, we got to do something different. But Donald Trump will come and Donald Trump will go. And the question is, does it begin and end with Donald Trump? Because if that's the case, then it's doomed to failure no matter what. Because human beings have all kind of frailties, let alone life and death. So I would advocate, Ted, we need to be more involved, not less.
No, absolutely. And you brought up a very good thing. Is it Donald Trump that's going to carry us through this? No, because you can't hang your hat on one person or all your bet on one person. It's the ideal that's going to carry us through these. It's the ideals that, we're all created equal, that, you have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those are the things that we want people to hang their hat on, because those are written in stone, as far as I'm concerned, in that movement. And when that movement started back in 2010 with the Tea Party movement, that was a response to the symptoms. Donald Trump's not the problem or the savior. He is a response to the symptoms that were going on. And remember those bumper stickers, take our country back. Well, we're in the process of that, and it's going to be messy. And I would bet it's going to be messier as we move forward. But I think we're going to get a better type of politician in there. And you brought up that point about not being engaged. And I think you either sent it to me or I sent it to you about Jasmine Crockett. She was saying that the reason people voted the way they did in the election and elected Trump is because they're just not educated. No, they're educated pretty well. That's why they didn't vote for your side. and even your side didn't vote for your side. So we need to keep educating, activating, or motivating and activating people. And that's what we're doing on the 3P broadcast.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, and you're right about take it back. We need to take it back from our own ignorance and apathy. That's
right.
The way
I think that's a good point. Great point.
You know, but the bottom line, Ted, really is, and we're going to move into another story that basically just chimes this in even more. What choice do we have? Really, what choice do we have? It's not like we have an alternative to Donald Trump, and I'm not advocating, because the alternative to Donald Trump is the progressives and Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders and all of this crap. We saw the alternative for 4 years to Donald Trump, because if we lose our majority in the Senate and our majority in the House in the midterms, we'll probably lose Donald Trump. And certainly if we lose the presidency the next go round, it's going to go right back to where it has. And that brings me to this opinion piece by a hero of mine. I'd love to meet the man, Victor Davis Hanson, who is to me one of the sharpest people on the planet, let alone our country. But he makes a case here. He says, how the left lost its collective mind. And he writes in this opinion piece, across the political left, from orthodox Democrats to Antifa in the streets, the opposition to President Donald Trump has lost its collective mind. And he gives an example, and we got a picture of it here, of Hakeem Jeffries, who literally is standing in his office with a baseball bat, basically insinuating.
Doesn't that put fear in you?
Oh yeah, that we're going to have to beat these MAGA people down is what it takes to me. But they have lost, he's right. Mr. Hanson is right. They have lost their collective minds. What is the alternative to the MAGA movement? So what are we?
The alternative is we need to educate people and elect a moral type of person to go up there and do the proper things for this nation, based on those principles, the founding doctrine, the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. It is not a perfect country. And again, whenever you get people and a large group of people, you're going to have this discontent. There's always going to be somebody out there that's not happy. But you've got to fight to preserve the founding principles and the core values. If we lose those down, the country's over. And where are you going to go? Where's somebody going to go? You're going to go to Ireland with Rosie O'Donnell? Going to go to Portugal? If America is not the superpower it is, and you're an American in a foreign country and our country buckles, good luck to you, because you're going to be an outcast and you're going to be scorned. That's why we need to build this back and make it stronger and better than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Hakeem Jeffries, he can keep his bat because he's in America. And we can play slow pitch softball for him.
Yeah, they can't beat the Republicans in baseball. That hadn't happened in a while. But, I said earlier, and I want to keep saying it, because the solution is to get more involved. If you want to see, let's just say you believe that going back to the Epstein thing real quick, if you believe that Donald Trump is culpable and all that, and you want higher caliber moral leaders at presidency, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But how do we get there? The way we get there is holding city commissioners more accountable, to holding school board members more accountable, to county commissioners more accountable. I say this all the time, Ted, but we're never going to elect a government that is better than we are. We have to hold ourselves more accountable as well.
Well, that's just it right there. You were saying, how do we get there? We elect these kind of people, but I think it starts with us, John. We've got to be that type of people, and then we're going to gravitate to other type of people. And the beauty of our system is, if these people come in on false pretenses, like your George Santos or your Jasmine Crockett's or whoever they are, throw them out. 2 years, throw them out. And let's just keep replacing until we find the right quarterback, the tailback, the offensive lineman that's going to give us that championship. The American people deserve it. The future generations deserve it. The past generations have paid the price to allow us to be where we're at today. I mean, good God, you think of the things we have compared to any other country. This is something we all have to be invested in. We have to fight to keep and make better.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about throwing them out. And that's one of the reasons why I became a Republican a few years back, because I grew up in the Democratic Party, as you well know. And it's not because they were perfect, but they had people like you, Ted, that were at least willing to ask questions. You mentioned like Santos. Well, the Republicans tossed him out, got rid of him.
They sure did.
And you mentioned Crockett. The Democrats are elevating her and want her to run for Senate, for God's sakes, in this great state of Texas. So they're the way they look at things is
that shows you where they're at.
Absolutely, that's my point. So that's why I'm actually worried about what's happening within the Republican Party and MAGA movement. And I just want to tell people to get more involved. But Mr. Hansen argues here. He says, and it reminds me of something that Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana said about when your enemy is kicking their own ass, don't stop them. Don't intervene in it. And the Democrats, that's it. That's a great line. And
it really is, and they are. I mean, they are devouring themselves. Who can be the most radical?
They are. And that's what concerns me about this inflection point, if you will, that we need to do like Mr. Kennedy said, just let them do it and don't get distracted. We just need to keep pushing, because
Mr. Need to bring them some Gatorade so they stay fighting and hydrated and a lot of energy so they can keep going after each other.
Mr. Hansen here in this opinion piece, he says that the Democrats keep picking issues that are 30-70 losers, and I think it may be even greater. But
I do too. I read that, yeah.
He talks about how they don't have any power right now, but if we don't stay focused, they will have power again, and they will absolutely use it. One thing about the Democrats, it doesn't matter what they do, their leaders do. When it comes time, they get in lockstep behind it, period.
They do. Let's hope they keep getting the leaders they have, and we'll have nothing to worry about. And that's why we've got to run, exercise. I mean, we're preseason, and we need to do all the proper training so that we go into the game and win the championship. And that's over. What I'm talking about metaphorically is, the period over the next 100 years. We're building for that. We're not building for the next election, although we have to focus on that and do the right thing. But we're building for the next 30, 40, 50 years, the vision for America that we create, the picture we paint, so that people will follow and want that. And the Democrats just aren't doing it. They're still blaming the billionaires and the oligarchy class for all the ills, and the Trump is, the dictator, he's Hitler, he's Satan, he's all those things. And they just missed the point. People want freedom, they want liberty, and there's one side that'll get it. It's the people that adhere to the Constitution. There's one side that wants to take it away, and that's your AOCs, your Bernie Sanders, because life's not fair in their eyes, that you only got ahead because you're white, you live in a suburb, you made a lot of money, you're an oligarchy, a billionaire, and they don't look internally at people fail to take advantage of the opportunity in America that is there for anybody. I don't care what color you are, it doesn't matter what your background was. It's what you have inside. And you say, I want to succeed, and I have a country that allows me to succeed.
Yeah, well, all we really need to do is look at what's happening. I mean, we got all these positive things that's happening, and I could just run down the list, but I'm not. But that under the Trump administration. But while all this success is happening, at the same time, Ted, we're literally on the verge of voting in a communist mayor to the world's financially greatest city in the world. Love it, hate it, or whatever. The Empire City, New York City, is the epitome of the greatest city in the world. Period. It just is. And we're on the verge of voting in a communist mayor, and the Democrats seem to be lining up for this guy. So while we're on the one hand, it's great, and we're focused, we got to stay focused. The threat is still there. It's right there in front of us.
It sure is. It sure is. And, this is where You've got to just be grounded in what your beliefs are. Don't waver on those, and let's move forward and let's bring a movement. The Magna movement is great, but when he gets out of office, where do we go? We need to have somebody else that we believe will lead this country in the right direction. And it doesn't have to be an individual. It goes back to the ideal.
We're just about out of time. I want to play one more video. And it kind of shows, I'm a movie buff, and this is what we have to do, drive this stake in. To me, it kind of sums up. It's got the great actor Anthony Hopkins, and
he's great in this.
Yeah, he's telling you what we're up against, and I really believe that this kind of sums up what we're up against and why we better stay focused and finish the job. Check it out.
Beyond the grace of God, a wanderer in the outer darkness. She's vampire, Nosferatu. These creatures do not die like the bee after the first sting, but instead grow strong and become immortal once infected by another Nosferatu. So, my friends, we fight not one beast, but legions that go on age after age after age, feeding on the blood of the living.
I should have warned people that was a bit graphic, but you got to drive that stake, man. Like Kennedy said, Senator Kennedy, don't stop them from kicking their own behind. But I think Anthony Hopkins' character in that movie really sums it up, because he says we're fighting legions of beasts that go on age after age after age. We've got to stay vigilant and stay in the fight and stay focused. We've got to get more involved, not less, because these beasts will rear their ugly head again. They've gone nowhere. They're still winning in New York City, as I said, for God's sake. We got a lot to stand up for.
Well, and this goes back to Ronald Reagan. This ideology, this belief, the belief in America, is not passed on in our veins to the next generation. It's by fighting it day in, day out, educating people. And it goes back to the educating people in the very beginning, when they start school, and get away from the garbage the left is telling people. Just telling people the untruths, and it's okay to do some of the things that they are advocating for. No, it's not. It's not reality. It's not life. It's not the way you were designed. Go out and achieve the best that you can be, and you can do that in this country. I tell you, I've traveled the world, and there's no other system like ours. Period.
Yeah, well, I always ask the question here, can we stand fast? Because we have much to protect and thus much to lose. And I realize that most people just want to live their lives, take care of their families, raise their children. Me, one of my greatest things, I just want to see my grandkids grow up as much as I possibly can. I want to hang in there for that as much as I can. But here's the thing. If you want to give a gift to your children, your grandchildren, and the people yet to come, the greatest gift we can give them is this constitutional republic in as great a shape as we can possibly leave it. I firmly believe that, Ted.
I agree with that. And I think it starts off with a moral compass, teaching them right from wrong, good from bad, and then pass on the gift that we've had. And if we set a good example in our children's life and our people that we have influence over, whether you're a football coach, a teacher, a minister, whatever it is, business owner, teach those principles to the people around you. And I think that is, I really do. I think that's the best thing we can do. And that's really a responsibility on us. We can't pass the torch on to the next person if they don't know which way to run, or what sports do they get into. You're a guy and you think you can run into women's athletics. I don't want to get political here, but we are a political podcast. You're telling them a non-truth. It's not reality. And so you need to direct these people at an early age. Says, this is the way life is, and we'll help you deal with it.
Absolutely. Exactly what he said. So I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing, spread the word far and wide, and we continue to grow with your support. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of the show, look at the tag that says contact Freddie and become a sponsor of the show and support our sponsors. Last word to you, Ted. You want to tell us anything about what you're up to up there?
Yeah, no, I'll get into that in a minute. But, go to our website, check it out, give us feedback, and then let us know about the program. Share it with people far and wide. And we'd love to have your sponsorship. I'm up here. We're going through some stuff with the State Department, talking about the direction of the country. Rubio's been in the news a lot lately, talking about ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, represents about 653 million people, a little over $4 trillion in trade. It's a force that can counter China, but we have to be actively engaged in it. And then I'll give you an update when I come back. I'll be back on Monday, but I'll be broadcasting from the beautiful, fantastic Florida Keys.
Sounds good, man. Have a great rest of your trip, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Everybody take care. Thanks for listening, and we sure do love your comments. Keep them coming. Take care.